Michelle Obama had finally said something that no one saw coming. It wasn't about politics, it wasn't about the past, and it definitely wasn't something she shared lightly. On the Sibling Revelry podcast, she revealed something deeply personal, something about her daughter, Malia, that turned into a massive storm online. You won't believe what she said until you hear it yourself. Malia Obama, the daughter of the former U.S. President and First Lady, had quietly dropped the last name Obama and started calling herself Malia Ann. Not just in her personal life, but professionally. The same girl who had once waved at the cameras from the White House lawn was now walking red carpets and being credited on films under a name that made no reference to her family's powerful legacy. And no one noticed until Michelle broke the silence. Let me tell you, this wasn't just about a name. It was a message, a statement. And the moment Michelle opened up about it, the internet lit up with questions. Why would Malia do that? Why walk away from one of the most powerful and respected names in the world, a name that opened every door? But here is the shocking part. Michelle didn't say it with disappointment or confusion. She said it with pride. And she said it in a way that made it clear this wasn't some random decision. This had been in the making for a long time. Michelle said Malia didn't even ask for permission. She simply let them know. Just like that, one day she told her parents, "I'm going to use Malia Ann now." And she did. No discussion, no second guessing. That kind of confidence, Michelle said, made her emotional. Because while many would have expected their child to use the family name as a way to make it easier in Hollywood, Malia had done the opposite. She walked away from the shortcut. She didn't want the spotlight because of who her parents were. She wanted to earn it. This is how Malia's journey into filmmaking started taking shape. Slowly, quietly, and with purpose. People had seen her at public events, at presidential speeches, and beside her younger sister, Sasha. But they hadn't seen what was happening behind the scenes. Malia had gone to Harvard, kept a low profile, and then stepped into the entertainment industry with a plan. Not to become a celebrity, but to become a creator, a writer, a director. She started working with Donald Glover, also known as Childish Gambino, and people in the industry were already praising her work ethic and talent. But the name on her scripts, it said Malia Ann. And this is where it gets interesting. When her short film, The Heart, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2023, it was met with praise. Critics said it was deep, emotional, and surprising for someone so young. But what most people didn't realize at the time was that the name Obama didn't appear anywhere in the credits. Malia had quietly erased it months before anyone even noticed. That wasn't an accident. That was strategy. What makes the story different is the way Malia chose to separate herself from the image the world had built around her. While many celebrity kids embraced the fame, leaned into the attention, and used their parents' name as a brand, Malia went the other way. She decided that if people respected her work, it would be because of her own voice, not her father's history or her mother's influence. And that's what caught people off guard, because nobody expected the daughter of Barack and Michelle Obama to distance herself from the name that had become one of the most respected in the world. The moment Michelle's comments went public, social media exploded. People couldn't stop talking about it. Some were shocked, others were angry, and many were curious. Why would Malia choose to walk away from a name that millions admired? Was it rebellion? Was she ashamed of where she came from? Or was there something deeper happening here that most people missed? The truth started to come out slowly, but the way people reacted revealed just how powerful names can be in our society. This wasn't just about Malia, it became a mirror for how people see privilege, fame, and independence. The craziest part, a huge number of people didn't even realize Malia had already been working in Hollywood, quietly, seriously, and with clear goals. In 2022, she landed a position as a writer on Donald Glover's Amazon Prime series Swarm. It wasn't just a side project. Sources close to the production said she brought strong ideas, had an eye for character detail, and wrote scenes that stayed with people long after the script ended. Donald Glover himself said she was unbelievably professional and smart, something you don't often hear from a big star about a newcomer, especially one who could have been written off as just a famous kid. But here's where it gets even more surprising. Malia was already working on her own original screenplay for an indie film under the name Malia Ann. She had been laying the foundation for her career for years, step by step, away from cameras, away from headlines. This is where the story took a twist because as more people learned what she had been doing, the conversation changed, the backlash started to shrink, respect began to grow. People who had first criticized her for dropping Obama started to understand what she was really doing. She wasn't turning her back on her parents. She was creating her own path, one that still honored her values, but didn't rely on her last name to be taken seriously. Let me tell you, in today's world, that's not easy, especially when your last name is one of the most powerful in modern American history. But here is the shocking part. Despite all the headlines, Malia never gave a single public statement about her name change. No interviews, no posts, no drama, just quiet, steady work. Michelle confirmed everything on the podcast, but Malia stayed silent. And that silence said more than words ever could. It told the world that she didn't need to explain herself. She didn't need approval. She knew exactly what she was doing. That's what made this story stand out from every other celebrity kid trying to go solo story. Malia didn't ask to be seen. She earned it. And she didn't let the Obama name carry her. She chose the harder road. Michelle said something powerful in the podcast, something that revealed just how deeply she understood her daughter's decision. She said, "It's important that she's Malia Ann because she doesn't want to be judged just as my daughter." And that one sentence hit people hard because it reminded them that being the child of a public figure might look easy, but behind the scenes, it comes with expectations, pressure, and constant comparison. Now, here's where it gets interesting. While Malia was walking this quiet, creative path through Hollywood, her sister Sasha was doing something totally different. Sasha had always kept things even more private. No film sets, no interviews, no public appearances. She was living her life far away from the cameras, focused on school and personal growth. And that contrast made Malia's decision even more noticeable. One daughter stepping into the creative spotlight under a new name, the other staying almost invisible. Two completely different ways of dealing with a world that wouldn't stop watching them. But Malia's move wasn't just bold, it was risky. Because in Hollywood, names matter. They open doors, they build trust, they give you instant attention. Malia could have had all of that. She could have been introduced as Obama's daughter everywhere she went. She could have had headlines, interviews, red carpets, but she chose not to. She chose to build something slower, quieter, and more authentic. And that's why people are still talking about it. Because this wasn't just a name change, it was a full rebranding of identity, purpose, and values. As the story kept unfolding, more layers started to appear. And this is where it gets personal. People began asking, what does it really mean to grow up in the shadow of greatness? For most of us, the Obama name stands for hope, strength, and history. But for Malia, that name also came with invisible weight. Every move she made, every project she touched would be compared, questioned, and watched. And while many thought she had every advantage, very few understood the kind of pressure that followed her. That's what made her decision so much more than just a branding move. It was an act of reclaiming her own voice. Let me tell you something most people didn't know. Malia had faced criticism long before this. From the time she was a teenager, people had opinions about her, what she wore, where she went, how she acted in public. She was judged harder than most girls her age because of who her parents were. The media didn't treat her like a normal kid, and even small things became headlines. So when she stepped into Hollywood, it wasn't just about talent. It was about proving herself in a world that already had its opinions. And the crazy part, she didn't complain. She didn't push back online. She didn't make a show of it. She just worked. This is where destiny took an unexpected turn. Malia could have followed the safe route, taken a public-facing job, done interviews, played the part of the Obama daughter in Hollywood. But she didn't. Instead, she spent years behind the scenes. She wrote, she directed, she created. Slowly, the industry started to notice her not as a politician's daughter, but as a powerful new storyteller. One producer who worked with her said that Malia had a voice beyond her years and a gift for bringing emotion out of the smallest details. That's not something a famous last name can teach. That's something real. But here's the shocking part. While supporters praised her bravery, not everyone was on her side. Some critics accused Malia of rejecting her heritage. They said she was trying to erase where she came from or turning her back on her legacy. Social media started filling with hot takes, some supportive, others harsh. But Michelle didn't waver. She stood by her daughter saying, "I raised my girls to be who they are, not who the world expects them to be." That one line shut down the noise because it reminded everyone that behind the fame, this was still a family, raising daughters in the public eye, trying to let them grow. What makes this story different? It's not just about fame or family, it's about choice. In a generation where clout is everything, where fame is often used as currency, Malia went the opposite way. She chose authenticity over access. She chose her voice over her image. And that's what made people stop and think. What if more young people followed her example? What if more children of celebrities said, "I want to be known for my work, not my name"? As the story gained more attention, fans and media started digging into her work more deeply, and they were surprised, not because she was good, but because she was better than expected. One film critic said, "There's a maturity in her storytelling that makes you forget who her parents are completely." That's what she wanted. That's what this entire journey was about. Malia wasn't running away from the Obama name. She was rising beyond it. But the world kept watching. And as more people started to understand her choice, something shifted. This wasn't just a Hollywood story anymore. It became a cultural moment, a turning point in how we view fame, legacy, and personal freedom. The idea that someone born into power could still choose the harder path and be better for it was something new, something inspiring. As the dust started to settle, one thing became clear. Malia Ann had not just made a bold move, she had changed the conversation. And while the world was still trying to catch up, she had already moved on to her next steps. Hollywood insiders revealed that she was quietly developing her first full-length feature film, again under the name Malia Ann. She was attending private writers' rooms, working with indie producers, and focusing on long-term projects. No social media buzz, no interviews, no red carpet noise, just work. This is where it gets interesting because most people her age are chasing fame. Malia was chasing craft. You won't believe how intentional her science was. Every decision she made, every time she didn't post, didn't speak, didn't explain, was part of a bigger strategy. She didn't want to play by the usual rules of celebrity. And by doing that, she slowly changed how people saw her. What started as controversy slowly became respect. And the people who had doubted her, many of them had to admit she was earning her space the hard way, and it was working. But here's the craziest part. The story could have ended quietly with just a name change and a few projects. But Michelle's reveal on the Sibling Revelry podcast turned everything into a national conversation. Michelle said something deeply emotional. She never even asked for our approval. She just told us, and I was proud. That confidence, that told me she was ready. Those words didn't just show pride, they showed trust. Trust that her daughter knew herself and knew her path. And that trust gave people permission to see Malia in a new light, not as Obama's daughter, but as an artist, a woman, a creator. Still, the online world stayed divided. While many praised Malia for being independent, others couldn't let go of the idea that she owed something to her family name. Some even said that if she didn't want to be linked to the Obamas, she shouldn't use any connections at all. But that's where they missed the point. Malia wasn't rejecting her family. She was separating her personal identity from a public one. She was saying, let me show you who I am, then judge me. And in a world that loves shortcuts and fame, that's not just rare, it's revolutionary. Destiny really did take an unexpected turn here, because no one could have predicted that one of the most famous young women in the world would choose to step away from the power of her last name. And no one could have predicted that by doing that, she would become even more powerful. Malia Ann's story isn't just about Hollywood. It's about every young person trying to find their own path in a world that's already decided who they're supposed to be. Michelle's final words in the podcast summed it all up. She's working hard, she's not relying on her name, and that makes me prouder than anything. That kind of pride wasn't about fame, it was about strength, choice, and self-respect. So, what makes this story different? It's not just the controversy, it's not just the name change, it's the message underneath it all. That even in the loudest, most fame-driven culture, there's still power in quiet, in focus, and in walking away from what's easy. And that's why Malia Ann didn't just drop a surname. She started a new chapter, one that belongs entirely to her.